Alrighty, let's talk a little bit about Chapter 6 and let's talk about integrated development environments. Okay, they're called IDEs. Let's begin with the IDE business. Up until now, we would launch a Python shell, and if we wanted to create a program, we would go File, New File. We'd be able to create our program. We would type in, say, some lines of code such as DEF, MY, FUNCT, and put in some stuff, and then we would call a main, maybe, DEF main, like so. And in the main, whoops, let's go ahead and at least put colon there. And in the main, we would say my actually I'm going to put a space in there, FUNCT, and then we would execute main. So we have a program here with a ton of errors in it, right? We will save the program, call it test. Move this over here so you can see that I'm saving it. Replace test, and then we would go ahead and run the program. And as you see, we're not getting any error notifications whatsoever. So we'll run the program, and right away we get an invalid syntax. All right, so there's a syntax error, so we'll fix that right off the bat. Save the program, run the program. Invalid syntax still. So what did I do? Oh, my function needs some parentheses, open parenthesis and close parenthesis, right? Save it again, run the module, expected an indented block. So it's giving us some clues, but seriously, it's not easy getting through this stuff, is it? Which is something we've all experienced, and I don't know why it insists on grabbing the whole lines and everything in between text instead of just a single line, but it does. It's one of the drawbacks of using one of these kinds of interfaces, right? So we'll save that, we'll run the program. Now we're getting an invalid syntax message again, syntax error, and that's because it was expecting us to type in this, right? So now that we have that, we'll go ahead and we will run the module, and we get lots of blood. Okay, so some of you guys are saying, gosh, Dave, how did you know what it was expecting? Well, I pretty much looked it up. Okay, I looked in the Python documentation, or I watched videos or something along those lines, and a lot of this stuff I have figured out as a consequence of just learning Python a little bit at a time, starting with setting x equals to 5 and then working up to a point to where we're doing functions. So here's our function. It's not working, right? It crashes and burns all over the place, and really we don't have any recourse to solving this thing other than lots of experimentation, looking up on the web and looking things up and all of that. So what I want to bring up is the whole notion of working with an integrated development environment, okay? And let's begin by, first of all, killing this project and opening up a web browser, okay? Come on over here to our screen so you can see what I'm doing. If I type in PyCharm, P-Y-C-H-A-R-M, CE for Community Edition, it's going to give us access to a free integrated development environment for Python, which is really cool. Okay, so we have download JetBrains Python IDE. So JetBrains is the company that makes our neat little Python IDE, which is called PyCharm. Click on that, and if we go down here, if you click on download community, it's literally going to immediately download the software so you can install it on your computer. Okay, I don't need to install it because I've already done that. So what I'm going to do is simply launch PyCharm. So launch it. I have a splash screen coming up on a different monitor altogether, and PyCharm has just brought this up. Now, as you see, I have two recent projects. One of them is called Test. The other one is called Downloads. This one is just for writing whatever I need to write to figure out Python. And this one here is literally the downloaded files that I collect from you guys so that I can correct your homework. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. I'll call it test, like so. And I'm going to say OK. Because test exists, it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite the source and if I want to use the existing sources. If I say no, I found out that on the Mac version it ignores you and uses them anyway. Okay? So it's loading the project, and as you see, the existing source is there. Well, that's no good. So let's go ahead and get rid of all of that. And let's tinker around with what this is about. Put this down. I'm in test.python, and let's have a look at this integrated development environment. First thing I want to do is just write myself x is equal to 5, just like that. Well, that seemed to be pretty straightforward. Y, look what it's doing. It's giving me some options. This is called code completion. In other words, if I wanted to, I can double click on any one of these things and it's going to put in this little bit of code. Of course, none of this makes any sense to me, so I won't use any of it. And I'll say that y is equal to x times 3, like so. And then I'm going to say z is equal to y times x, just to give it something to do. And then I guess what I will do is print. Watch what happens when I forget stuff. str. Actually, what happens if I just do s? Does it give me code completion? Yeah, there it is. See? There's str. So I can double click it so I know for sure I'm using the right command. String z. So I'm converting z into a string. Okay? And call that. And it's giving me the little red squiggly, and if I hover, it's telling me end of statement expected. Well, the reason it's expecting an end of statement is because it needs these. You see, a person, if they wanted to, they can legitimately put in print. See how it goes? Print, objects, step, end, file, flush. Wow, it's giving me all kinds of cool little things I can deal with that, right? So let's go ahead and get rid of print. Print z, looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and run this program. Run test. And there it is. It says that it's 75. All right. So it worked like a champ. I'd like to know what is happening with each one of these variables as it works its way through the program. This is called debugging. Okay. And I can trace my way through the program. But Python needs to know where to begin tracing from. So if I go into this gutter area right here, and if I click, you get a big little red, or a big red dot. All right. The big red dot has set a breakpoint, and it's turned on a nice red line to let us know that this is where the program is going to stop. In other words, it's going to start running the program and any other support programs that it needs to run to get me up to this point. Alrighty, so let's go ahead, run. This time I'm going to say debug test. Click on that, and it's stopped right here at x equals 5. Now let's have a look and see what we have. Down here it's saying module test.python 2. Alright, so apparently I have a second version of this program running, or having had run it before, or something like that. Okay, here it says it is, oh, I'm sorry, it's stopped on line 2, not second version. I'm thinking of a different IDE, my bad. So it's stopped on line 2. It's waiting to do something. Down here in variables, we see underscore underscore bulletins underscore underscore, that's a variable name, is equal to this. Here it says underscore underscore doc underscore underscore is equal to none type none. So there is no documents associated with this program. Underscore underscore file underscore underscore is equal to, and it tells me that the data type is a string, but you'll see that it's in curly braces, which means it's a string array. It's an array of characters, and it tells me exactly where this file is. Here we have more stuff. Down here, another string is called main. So we have a variable name called name, and it has main in it. We have a variable name called package and it has none. A variable name called spec and it has none. Be interesting to see if these really exist. So let me stop. I will say kill that for right now, and while I'm having fun, down here I'm going to say print, and we had a variable name called main, right? Underscore underscore or name underscore underscore, like that, I think. So let's see what that does. We'll turn off the breakpoint. Let's run the test, and it comes back and it says 75 in main. So sure enough, the variable name, who's literally the variable name called name, has that sitting inside it. That's kind of an interesting thing, and we'll find out why that is later on, because it's a useful thing. All right, but anyway, turn the breakpoint back on. Let's run this thing very quickly, and we will debug it and trace our way through this. All right, so x is equal to 5. Here is a thing called step over, and basically what that means is just step into the next line. All right, so step over this or execute this line of code, and we see now at the bottom, whoops, one more time, we see now at the bottom we have x. Python has turned it into an integer, and it's called the number 5. And I see that we use curly braces, so this critter up here must not be an array of characters, but it simply literally is a string variable. Alright, so this is what happens when you confuse programming languages. So let's step again. Now we have another variable, y is equal to that. Step again. We have a third variable, and they're all integers, and it tells me what's inside them. Isn't that cool? And then we finally do our last step, and we now get all of this garbage, because what's happened is test.python is done running, but all of the other stuff supporting the execution of test.python is still running, waiting to actually finish gracefully. So I'll just hit the stop button or just hit the play button so that it can finish its job, and there we are. I'll close this because we don't need to look at that. It's very, very confusing. And we have stepped through a program. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the actual assignment.